Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. Colin, you want to kick it off?
I mean, I know a lot of, I'm Colin Drummond, most of you have known me for years, exactly. I've been working with these guys already for years. These guys are the leaders of the community brigade, and they'll tell you the history and so on, but it's a huge, exciting undertaking to increase resilience in Malibu and other communities, and it's a pilot program. It's really exciting because, you know, for the first time, it's about not just being on our own, we'd be part of like an infrastructure, which is really exciting, and including sort of the major authorities. So, but these guys will tell you all about it, but we'll let you introduce themselves. But I'm really excited that we're finally having these meetings. So it's been a long time coming.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, pleasure.
I'm Brent Woodworth, Keegan Gibbs. Keegan here.
I grew up in Malibu for the most part. My background's in communication, marketing, filmmaking, and I got really interested in wildfire post-Woolsey, just like a lot of other people. Became pretty involved with Tyler here during the fire and directly after the fire, helping set up kind of like a makeshift EOC community center at Point Doom. And ever since then, just kind of been dedicated to figuring out how we can be better prepared for the next time. Because fires have always come through here, but there's never been a real solidified infrastructure for residents to be better prepared. It's always kind of been whispered. So, that's kind of why we get involved with this.
And Tyler, I want to introduce Tyler. So Tyler, actually, we're really glad to have Tyler when it comes to looking at homes and inspecting them and understanding what's going to burn them down. There's only about 100 people in the country that have a full certification as full level inspectors for the National Fire Protection Association. This gentleman is one of them. Do you want to say a couple words about?
Yeah, similar background to Keegan. We grew up together surfing, you know, and then we went through this fire together. And then we kind of really focused our energy towards doing this program. And my background is mostly in engineering, mechanical engineer, brake systems for the automotive space. And yeah, so that's, you know, changed gears after the fire. It's really become a passion to understand why homes burn down and how can we rebuild and have that peace of mind that we can rebuild without it happening again.
Great, thank you. Again, Brent Woodworth. My background is in domestic and international crisis management for about 40 plus years doing that. Working with private sector companies, working with the U.S. government, still some stuff with the State Department and agencies, and responding to and managing very, very large events throughout the world. Also helped manage part of the City of LA's Emergency Ops Center for about 10 years and doing those kinds of things. But the main focus, which relates back to this, is that how can you take actually certain concepts and challenges that society faces and convert them from this idea, from a dream, to reality? How do we make it something that's real? And that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of political issues, a lot of social issues, a lot of legal issues to go through. But what we're going to talk about is actually a really unique Cinderella story, which basically has done just that. It's gone from this concept that was created a little bit before Woolsey, but really initiated when Woolsey occurred. And now we're talking about something that's real, which is really different. So let me take it through really briefly. After Woolsey, how many people may have read the independent report on the Woolsey fire that we did? If not, you can go to the laepf.org website. You can pull it down. And what happened was that we pulled together some of the top academic institutions and others to really look at what occurred. But not just what occurred during the fire, but how do you build a more resilient community after a fire? And we also looked at the Paradise Fire. We worked with UC Berkeley and a lot of other folks in Northern California as well. And it really became apparent that you had to identify who were the critical stakeholders, who's really involved, which is you, along with government agencies and many other folks that have to be part of this. And then how can you do a step-by-step resiliency program with small bites that are easy to understand, but have potentially a high level of leverage in the benefits of mitigation. And then we looked at this whole thing, mitigation. How do you adjust or correct a particular risk that may be there? And some interesting studies that exist show that for every dollar that you spend on pre-disaster mitigation. And by the way, there's two types of mitigation. There's structural mitigation, physical mitigation, and non-structural, which is a change in behavior. But the structural mitigation alone, we know that it's at least 10 to 1. So every dollar you spend on it, you get an equivalent savings, potential savings of $10. That varies depending on the disaster, whether it's earthquake, whether it's fire, or flood, there's slight variances, but that's about the average. But the other thing that we looked at is how do you bring a community to get together? Because if we can change behavior, if we can together find a way to take certain responsibilities and manage these events, that benefit is as high as 60 to 1. It's right off the charts. It's like wearing a seatbelt. The seatbelt may be physical, but the act of wearing it is something that was a change of behavior. So now we don't even think twice when you get in the car at home. You automatically just buckle your seatbelt. You don't even think about it. It's just human nature. Before you put the key in, that's what you do. Put the belt in, there you go.
Over and over.
And by the way, do you know how that started? How they got all of us as adults to do seatbelts? The marketing program was targeted completely at children. Back when that first started, they realized if they just went to us and said, "Oh, wear your seatbelt," you're going to, okay, that's ridiculous, forget it. But if you targeted it at the kids, and your kids coming home from school were telling mommy or daddy, "Mommy, why didn't you buckle your seatbelt?" Or, "Dad, you got to buckle your seatbelt." Well, you don't want to. Okay, fine, I'll buckle. It worked. It worked brilliantly. It was a change in behavior. So we look at the risk that we're living in now within the fire area, other disasters, and we said, let's take some of these small steps and figure out what it is. And that's how this group got together. And key people, Keegan, Tyler, there's actually several others, administrative and support and legal people. And also, I hope you guys know Chief Drew Smith. Are you familiar with Drew? One of the things we're very lucky here in Malibu is we have probably one of the finest wildland fire experts in the country. Drew Smith, the fire whisperer, really understands wildland fire behavior. And there's maybe 5 guys in the country that have the level of skill that he does. And he's right here in our backyard.
You're gonna stay?
Yeah, right. We tell him he can't leave.
Yeah.
We just
He's all in on this program, so.
Yeah. What station is he at?
70s.
So I'm sorry? 70, yeah. So Carbon Canyon.
He's the assistant chief for the whole area. So he has several battalion chiefs that report to him and all the captains of the local station, but his office is down south.
But all the local stations report to him. And then he goes up through Chief Maroney. One of the things that had to happen for us to have this level of resiliency change that we're talking about is we needed to get the buy-in of, frankly, all of LA County Fire and the Board of Supervisors and several other people. Not an easy thing to do. And with the change from Chief Osby to Chief Maroney, we've been working before with Chief Maroney and a number of the other chiefs, talking about this concept for a few years. And while some of them were very positive about it, others were very sunshine. Well, no, we don't want to get the public involved in our business. We're afraid of that relationship. What are they going to know? How to do anything? Or why should we even take that into effect? We also worked and met very closely with the firefighters union. So we presented to their board of directors, and went through and got their permission approval for what we were doing. And eventually this led to a proposal back to the LA County Board of Supervisors, which I can tell you as of October of last year, there was a unanimous vote by the entire Board of Supervisors certifying this program. And the chief signed off on it, and all the legal issues, the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed. And as of October, at the end of October, this program is the first in the country of this nature, of a true partnership between LA County Fire, LA County Board of Supervisors, and the local communities, 7 pilot communities, including yours.
I'm interrupting you. That's not easy to do. I think a lot of that is because of the work that these guys have done and how good their paperwork and how properly they took the time to look at every detail and lay everything out. When I went in front of the Board of Supervisors, it was very clear this was going to be a success. Like I was skeptical at first myself, thinking a lot of programs like this in the past have been just taken aside. So it's pretty exciting. So let's give a real quick hand of applause for that.
So the Community Brigade program, we have a mission. Our mission is to, and I apologize, I'm going to look at some of the slides here, and we can share this with you later. to create really a lasting cultural change in the community by empowering them to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. We want to look things at how do you minimize loss, and then how do you accelerate recovery, and how do you build a much more resilient community. And by minimizing loss today, that is so critical. If you look at the cost to rebuild and how expensive it is, and I'm sure a lot of you have also seen what's happening within the insurance industry, where we're seeing a massive number of non-renewals. We're watching rates go through the roof, or non-availability of insurance. It's pretty scary. Pretty scary. And if you lose your house and take a look at the homes that burned down in Woolsey, there's still almost half that haven't been rebuilt. And you're going like, this has been 5 years. And why is that? Well, it's so expensive. There's so much red tape to go through. It's so traumatic. And you go, well, wouldn't it be better, hope, that if you could do a few actions in mitigation of risk that would dramatically reduce the chance of your house burning down? That might make a lot of sense. And what can we do to work together to help protect that? So that's where it comes from. There are a number of things that the brigades do, and I'll let Keegan start to go through this, that says, okay, we now have these 7 communities. I'll just tell you what they are. So Big Rock is one of the communities. So it's Hidden Hills, Topanga, Malibu West, Point Dume, Ventura County line, and Corral Canyon.
Yep.
So those are the 7 designated pilot communities. It's a 2-year renewable pilot, fully supported by the county. As a result, we do have a number of hurdles we've gotten over, including the availability for us when we get the right group in there to do credentialing. The kind of credentialing we have will be a fire credential and sheriff's credential. So it's a very high level credentialing that's never happened before. We are looking for some very specific people to be part of the program. It takes quite a bit of training and dedication to it, but we'll go through that so that you're aware of it. I'll let you.
So the basic training that everybody needs to go through is the same basic training that anybody that is within a fire operational area has to go through. So anytime there's a fire and you see a guy, anybody from driving a tractor to handing out water, the firefighter on a truck, they have the same basic training. So everybody's expected to do that in order to be qualified. So the first one is ICS, which is Instant Command System 100 and 700. Then there's S190, which is fire behavior, S130, operations in the wildland, L180, which is human factors in the wildland, and then S290, which is intermediate fire behavior. There's communication protocol training that everyone will learn how to basically use your radio, how to everything from the push to talk to what the proper etiquette is. And then 4 times yearly, brigade members will train with the local station. So for example, Big Rock would train with captains from Station 70. And so they'd probably do it here or down at 70s. And it could be anything from just basic awareness, talking about fire behavior, to actually pulling hose and learning how operations work, or even going back over communication protocols. And then a really important thing that Brent, we've already talked about, as well as Tyler, is home hardening and getting houses up to snuff. You know, if you're part of the brigade, but your house isn't hardened and a fire comes, where do you think you're going to be spending all your time? You're going to be spending your time worrying about your own structure. And that's really not what this program's for. It's not to train you to be able to protect your home. It's to train you to be able to support your own community.
You should just know a little background on home hardening. In around the pandemic time, 4 of us went and did the training with Jack Bowen. And we've done a couple of dozen home hardening inspection tours here, and they've always been super positive, all
Great.
Based on that training. So
Yeah.
we've got some of it. There's obviously way more to do.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one of the things that it's over the years since Woolsey's stepped up a little bit.
And you guys are still an active Firewise, correct?
Firewise and Fire Safe Council.
And Fire Safe, great. So which is huge. You know, that those are grant avenues for everything from fuel management to education. We wanted to get Jack or Pat Derlin to come and teach that class again. One of the expectations, we haven't kind of nailed this down yet, is that everybody that's part of the brigade will kind of be an advocate for at least 5 people in the community to do those inspections. So if you're a brigade member, the expectation is that you'll
Influence others.
influence others to harden their house, because ultimately, if all the houses are hardened, there's very little work to do during an event.
And it just takes one not hardened house to take out the rest of the
Yeah.
house.
But it's
Exactly.
interesting, the
Yeah.
people that ask us to come and do inspections for doing most things, they always enjoyed, took in what we told them to do.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that are doing it anyway, as much as they can. You educate them a little bit more. It's the ones that don't call you.
Yeah.
Need it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's in, I think that neighbor to neighbor societal pressure type thing is really important, the cultural pressure. And when this program gets up off the ground, there's more awareness about it. I think there's bigger rapport with the members from the brigade to be like, okay, cool, I trust this person that they're going to be looking at our community.
Now, we do a lot of inspections, and we have a grant that we operate on for doing that, Cal Fire. And in the last year, we've done over 300. A little different. There's a lot of key things that people look for that are consistent among the inspections, because you've got the guys in the fire department that are doing it, and some others. And you're going to start to see more of the insurance companies sending people out to look at things. And the list that they're looking at, a lot of it is based on something that IBHS, the Institute for Building Home Safety, which is really a conglomerate of the insurance companies, that they set as the standards. We feel some of those are right, some of them maybe can be interpreted a little differently. But that's just we're fully certified in that area. What we do that's a little different when we do the inspection is, well, first of all, it's free. But we'll spend about an hour to a couple of hours, depending on the size of the property. It's all external, never go inside. So we go around the house and we take dozens, if not more than that, videos and pictures at the exposure areas. That then goes into a very detailed report that we generate for you. And then we send you within a week or two this detailed report, which is pretty good size, that tells you where those are, but it doesn't just tell you the exposure, it tells you how to fix it. So it actually, in writing, is going to tell you, here's your exposure, and here's what.
It's a deck,
Yeah.
either digital or print out. You could literally hand your contractor and not have to say a word,
So here,
and they should be able to interpret it and do all.
Are
and
you
then,
doing this on people getting permits or?
No.
we'll do it for anyone.
This is just for anybody.
Anybody.
It's through what?
It's through us. It's through us.
Yeah,
And
that's the reason.
And basically, yeah, we've done a lot of homes here to kind of all over the place that we've done. We've done in Vancouver and so forth. And we've done entire complexes for, 100+ homes, a condo complex or townhouses, things like that. And then what we ask the owners or which way to do is to try to implement those recommendations. We can't force you to do that, but we sure recommend that. And then you can come back to us after you've implemented them, and we'll redo the report. And so then we'll give you a report that shows side by side before and after, which can be potentially beneficial from an insurance standpoint, or even your own documentation that shows you that you've done this. By the way, some of these things are very inexpensive. For example, just changing out the screens on your vents, where a lot of the homes that were built in code are 1/4 inch screening, and now the code requirement is 1/8 inch screening. And to buy that galvanized mesh is very inexpensive. It's a real do-it-yourself, simple thing to cut it out and screw it in. And the next thing you know, you dramatically prevented that. Because by the way, part of what this brigade is really focused on is what burns down homes in a main fire. There is the main fire front that comes through that's extremely hot, and you never want to be fighting that. 1,000+ degrees, you're going to die. So don't ever think that you can go fight a main fire front. You're not qualified to do it. Even the fire department doesn't want to fight that kind of stuff. That's why they use air resources and others. But after that front moves through, like the Woolsey, the majority of homes burn from spot fires and ember fires in the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's the small ember fire underneath a deck or a porch or on a fence that wicks into the house lights up and it's gone. So that's what burns most homes. And our objective is to work, again, in harmony and under the direction of LA County Fire to have some of our key field people to come back into those neighborhoods and be able to do things like put out spot fires and fires under the direction. that will save an incredible number of lives. So, up to you.
Yeah, no, last thing is the first year, it's gonna go about 60 hours total of training. So that's all the classes that I just listed previously. And then every year after that, there's a class called RT 130, which is basically a recheck of your knowledge of operations. And that's only a few hours. So the first initial lift is about 60 hours the first year, and then every year after, it's your quarterly training with the local station. And then just that one class.
And how often are like the SC 190, 290s, how often do you do those?
It's a good question. It depends how many people we get volunteer the first year. Right now, we've already have 150 people or so that have signed up. I think some of you guys, I've seen a few Big Rock signups. And we've only, this is only our third outreach. So we've got 4 more to go, and then we're gonna do some public digital social media outreach. So we anticipate probably a few hundred plus people with that initial interest. And then we're hoping to whittle that down to about 100 people. Train all those 100 people in the first year. And then after a couple years, hopefully open up the program to more communities. And then we would redo S190, 290, etc.
We'll probably teach some of those twice a year. It's expensive.
Really expensive, and also obviously we have to do it a few times because if somebody can't make it on a Saturday, we don't want that to disqualify them, so we have to offer a couple times.
Well, we do want to bring people together for some of these. I mean, there's the ICS course, incident command courses, you can actually take online, take it today. ICS 100 and 700, those are just basic incident command, and what's called NIMS, the National Incident Management System. These are things that will educate you as how does the fire department communicate? What are the protocols that emergency managers use and so forth? And it's great so that you at least understand what's the government thinking when they send out all these. How do they manage this? And who does what? What are these resources? It will educate you on that so that when you hear it on your radio or you understand things are going on, now it's in your head, it's going to click. Oh, I understand what the planning P is, the cycle is. But we may also use facilities, which we now commission to do the partnership, places like Fire Camp 8 and other locations, and even some of the fire stations. So it's great. We'll be involved in that very directly.
Yep. Brent already spoke about this, but after becoming qualified, everybody's issued an LA County Fire and Sheriff Volunteer ID. People will get community leads will get decals for the personal vehicles to help be efficient through roadblocks. And then a really unique one, which I think is really important, is that all the volunteers will be covered under the California Disaster Service Worker Program. And what that does is allows coverage. So during an event, if you injure yourself, etc., there's insurance to cover that. And then it also covers while you're training as well, which is pretty important.
Yeah,
it covers while you're training. So if you're doing one of the trainings.
It's workers' comp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you will be certified as what's called a volunteer, state of California volunteer disaster service worker. Which means that ideally, when we call you, and if you're available, it means we're going to ask you to come on and help. So that's really what you're signing up for. Willing to say, hey, I'm going through all of this. When we take a look at the people that we're after, there's a pretty big investment that has to be made in training, so and equipment. We'll talk to that in a minute, but as a result, we're really looking for people that are going to stay with the program a minimum of 3 years or one. That's really the kind of investment because we're investing thousands and thousands of dollars per person. This is not cheap.
Yeah. So everybody will be issued uniform PPE, which would be a shirt, pants, boots, helmet, gloves, goggles, every web gear, and fire shelter, which is all standard to be on the fire line. Everybody will be issued a radio. Community leads will have a radio that can actually speak with command, and then regular volunteers will have radios that can listen to command and everything, but won't be able to actually accidentally speak and clog up command.
Yeah, we're very lucky. The Malibu Foundation, Ellen Weber and folks, they purchased all this equipment for us already. So we're gonna need more, but we do have very high-end, radios, mobile units, and repeater units and so forth. One of the things we're looking for is a site here in Big Rock for the repeater, which needs to be up high. So the higher and more coverage you get, the better. Because we're also making sure we have repeaters where we put good hills and parts of Ventura, and then on Ventura County line, and David Hertz is helping to arrange that for us. So we need to make sure we've got communications across a broad area, and you will be on the same channels. The command channel is the command channel for the fire itself. The reason for the caution about not talking on that is that that is a live communication channel in which Drew Smith or Chief or actually managing the fire itself. We don't want you on that channel. You don't want to be ordering pizza on.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I have a question. What's the physical aspects that you need for somebody to qualify for that program?
Well, first of all, you've got to be 18 years or older, so you must be an adult.
We got some of them that can't qualify. It's okay, I'm sorry. It's gonna be 8.
But there are two key things for folks who are really field operations folks. And let me just describe what that is. If you are in field operations during a fire, you are required to wear all the PPE, including keeping the shelter on and so forth. That stuff is heavy. It's hotter than the dickens. Let me tell you, it's like taking your Peloton and putting it inside a Swedish sauna, turning the sauna up as high as you can and telling you go ride for an hour inside that sauna. That's the environment you're going to be in. And then we tell you that, oh, in addition to that, start lifting weights while you're in the sauna and while you're in the Peloton and wearing all this stuff. So if you feel that that's the environment you can operate in and physically you can meet that requirement, then yeah, you're the person, the individual that we want for the field side of it. If that's not your cup of tea, so to speak, or something that would be taxing, or not just that, there's a lot of psychological issues that go with it. There's a lot of people who think, oh, gee, I can go in the fire. And the second they get there, they go, oh, no way. It's a lot to face. There's huge challenges in doing that. So we want to take everybody else who's interested. And we need people for like communications. You and I talked about that, where someone is our net command or key communications or logistics or operations. There's a lot of support capabilities that we need to have to support the field operations and to integrate with the fire department. I'll give you a direct example. We have to have more than one person that's available to go with Chief Smith and with his field assistant, basically Megan, to go to the command center and be relating back to the field what's going on at the command. So we work with the liaison officer. We're not sitting there talking directly to Drew. He's too busy. But with Drew is another fire individual, in this case Megan, who's tied to the hip with Drew. And her job is to interface with all these agencies. It's not just us. It may be the media, it may be Red Cross, it may be a whole bunch of other groups. And we're one of those that's certified to be at command. And that's a lot of responsibility. So we need someone who can be calm, isn't going to be frustrated with a million things going on at the same time. It's very organized and can do that. We have a lot of stuff we have to track. We need to know where everybody is and what's going on. Part of what we're going to be doing is situational awareness for the fire department and for ourselves. Where the fire department may come back and ask, oh, tell me what's happening in your area. Tell me what's burned down or what hasn't. And by the way, part of this program is that when you sign up, there are certain obligations you have to obey the rules and regulations. I'll just give you one directly. It's come out of some incidents before. The Kobe Bryant incident with the helicopter and so forth. As part of this, you cannot take photos of certain things, nor distribute those, nor are you allowed to call out if you're part of this brigade and homes burned down and you provide that information back to command, you don't provide it to the homeowner. The liability is through the roof on this. You send something out that's wrong and incorrect information, that's a huge problem. So we have very strict rules and operating protocols for these. But hopefully I answered some of that as far as the physical requirements.
You need something strong, young, and healthy.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, These guys can do it, I'm too old. So it's one of those kinds of things where you have to say, can you face that and do that? That's what we're looking for. But there's a role for anybody who really wants to get involved.
I want to just, bring up, so we really need to find a good location inside Big Rock for a repeater. And I know you guys, or some people have worked on this in the past, such as Carson Wash and the lack of reception here. I know majority of the community you can get on simplex for one and the other. But it's something we're looking into. We already have the equipment. We're just looking to place it somewhere.
Is there a power of the water tank?
I don't know if there's power in the water. That's a good question, but we don't actually need power. And
We'll run solar.
because we can run solar and the water tank actually maybe a good call. That's District 29, right?
Rather than sending out to everybody, I've been contacting some people, and sort of, the ideal is like at the top of the hill. Rosie, who runs the radio program, had said that, we can test someone else's house further down and see how good it is, no problem. So I think for anybody who's open to it, would be great. Since I know you all so well, I know everybody's in the lower part of Big Rock in this room except for Georgia. Olivia's got a property up top. So it's a good thing also just to get out as you're talking to sort of people in the community, for someone who might be open. And Ruzi provided me with basically putting some equipment in a garage, and there's a very tall antenna outside.
Yeah, about a 25-foot antenna is the goal.
Yeah, but it's really.
And it's not a big mass. It's not a huge mass. It could be just.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to go in front of your view.
Yeah, exactly.
And Andrew runs our radio group here too. We've got our own sort of inexpensive walkie-talkies, and we don't have perfect simplex communication.
No, okay, got it. Yeah.
No, but we've got like a bit of a relay thing going and so on. So,
Right.
But anyway, just from the repeater is so important. We really need to have someone sort of. I would do it in a second. I'm just like we're on Chico, it's not too far up the hill, so.
Right.
Where would you need?
Hi Georgia.
Hi.
This is Georgia.
Yeah.
Hi.
And Georgia came in.
Yeah, I just spoke yesterday to Lisette Watkins, and they live just below me. I'm just like on a ridge, and there's just nothing flat there. But she said she'd have to talk to her partner.
Mhm.
But
Bless you.
but she.
There it is.
But she herself said, why not?
Right.
And so they have two properties there.
Right.
They're way up there.
Cool.
One
Oh,
where the house is and one where another house
Yeah,
was
it's been
before
moved.
it burned
Yeah.
and slid. So now it's just kind of
A lot. Yeah.
a lot there, but it's flat. She asked if it could be set down the hill a little bit. And I said, well, I don't see why not, because they're just facing right out there. You can see
Yeah, I think it's a terrific place.
the potential location. If you see the palm trees lit up at night, that's about where.
If you can give us her contact information or an intro, then Ruzi, as mentioned, is our radio guy. And what he'll do is he'll get that latitude, longitude, the location. We can actually computer model it first, because they're very detailed, and it gives us what's called propagation models to see how big the signal will come out. And then we'll actually take an antenna, put it up there and try it, and then see what happens before we do.
Yeah.
But it's so helpful, and it's what we've been doing in the county line area and others. We will be putting an antenna up on Castro Peak. Castro Peak gives us really good signal down to Hidden Hills and to a lot of other areas. It's pretty good. And also we're talking with MRCA finding better locations for Topanga. Topanga's tough. It's just so many canyons.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yes, sir.
Couldn't we have a repeater on Catalina Island?
We've talked about that, and actually, there are a couple that do. The challenge with repeaters on Catalina Island, it's very hard to get a space on where they have those, and also get it high enough. So it's pretty restricted and very expensive, but we're talking with them. It's a really good point, because the Brent line is just line of sight. So if you look out towards Catalina and the signal coming in, it is a great way to do it. DCS, Disaster Communication Service out of the sheriff, they have one that's out there.
Arson Watch out.
Arson
Well,
Watch.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any kind of swell, any kind of swell.
So it's
If you
really
get a swell, you can swell it off.
We're really trying to do it here if we can. And our models show that we can. Also, the equipment that we have is pretty powerful stuff. 50-watt mobile units that we're using them. They carry a signal a long way. Also, we found LA County has just changed their system, something called RICS on the main communication. The signal now is much clearer and more powerful than it was before. So because we're on, in essence, their channels on VHF, every test we've done so far has been. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, so engagement roles. So there's pre-incident, during an incident, and post-incident. And we've already gone over a bunch of this, but pre-incident, a lot of it is home hardening, the training. And a really interesting one is increase the situational awareness. So when you become part of this program, you kind of become privy to a lot of the knowledge that the fire department and some of the other local agencies disseminate internally to each other. An example of this, of that, how valuable that information is, and not many people know this, that Drew Smith, the chief we were talking about earlier, on the Thursday morning prior to Woolsey started Thursday evening, right? Thursday morning, Chief Smith sent a bulletin to basically all the local stakeholders, local government, all the fire chiefs in the area, and basically, more words than this, basically said, if a fire starts today, there's no way we're gonna be able to catch it. Because of how dry it was, the fuel, everything. And sure enough, it started that afternoon. Drew said within an hour or so, he knew he was gonna burn all of it. So that situational awareness is really valuable to us, because if I knew Thursday morning, oh, if a fire starts, it took about, I don't know, 15, 16 hours to get to Point Doom from when it started. That's a lot of time to be able to prepare a house in a community, right? So, or even just that morning is going, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna load up my stuff, make sure I got gas, I get all my gear, my radio's charged. So that that information in that situation was really valuable, being able to have access to that. Another one is identifying TRAs and safety zones within each community. So for you guys, a TRA, temporary refuge area, may be a well-hardened home. This home looks pretty well, I mean, just from looking right now, it's a pretty well-hardened home. An area that has a lot of parking, that would be a TRA. A safety zone would be something more like, potentially for you guys, would be something like Duke's, or even all the way to Bluffs, somewhere you can park a ton of rigs. You never have to worry if there's no fuel load near it at all. You can literally set up communication with mini EOC. So that's really valuable, because during an event, you have to know where to go when the fire department comes through to make sure you stay safe. During the incident, so the overall goal during an incident is to work with LA County Fire to achieve the incident objectives. And the reason why we mention that is people aren't to be trained just to be able to go out and do whatever they want. People go out and are trained because the incident objectives, often during Woolsey, for example, it was a life over property situation very quickly, right? There was, during Woolsey, there were 250,000 people evacuated. In the first 36 hours, there was 2,000 911 calls, and there's only 200 engines. So that ratio says, hey, we're focusing on life safety here. 200 engines is not going to do anything in terms of being able to put out a fire, let alone be able to support protecting thousands of structures, right? So when it becomes a life safety issue, you can't just be, okay, I'm going to focus on saving the structure, when somebody just down the road here in the community may need help evacuating, or there was a 911 call that was a hang up, and somebody just needs to go check on that property to make sure that person's okay. During Woolsey, a lot of people called 911 even when they weren't home to say, hey, I'm trapped, I need help in my house, even when they weren't home, just to try to get engines to their house.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah,
A lot
and
of
hundreds of calls. So a lot of time was spent of engines that couldn't engage with fire, that were literally just going on wellness checks when what 911 calls are making us.
Part of our discussion with the chief, and we're trying to work out how to do this, is depending on the nature of the call, if it was, is grandma still at the house or out there? Are there calls within the areas that we're operating that we could actually, they could direct that information to us, that we could do the quick check? Because if we're in that neighborhood, you're in your neighborhood, you know your neighbors, right? And you know grandma, right? And so potentially it's easier for you to go knock on grandma's door than to send 2 engines up here, take them out of service just to see if grandma's home. Now, if you do need the 911 service, we're not trying to say don't do that. We want if someone's hurt, you got to get 911. You got to get these guys up here. If someone's trapped in it. But if it's some of those calls where it seems like a quick door knock to call first, we might be able to do that. And if we can save some of those hundreds of calls, thousands of calls, that frankly take critical resources away from all the fire for doing what they really need to do, that's great. That's a great job for us to do.
How do you educate people not to use the 911 to make those type of calls? And maybe route them a different way without tying up the phone lines? Because that's, I know, if you phone with the 911, they'll freeze because everybody's calling. You know,
We
my-
have a
my
problem in
dog-
our neighborhood, and you let all the neighborhood, all the big rock know, if you have a problem, call here first, unless it's like that.
Yeah, it's
I want to know, because I know Topanga has tried to address this with the neighborhood networks. And so how effective that might be, and, it's certainly something we could do. And I think education, like I was saying, education is the issue, right?
Topanga's done a really good job over the years. TSAP and the other groups that they have. They've really developed methodologies for making the neighbors aware, and people, the participation level with Topanga is really high in doing it. And if you can achieve that, it really is just education. And it's actually working with the fire department, whatever we can do for more public information output, whatever we can, to get people to not use 911. They're still going to do it, but we really just want to try to stop it.
If someone calls 911, it usually shows them the location, right? So
Yes.
if they're saying, check on my house in Big Rock, but they're in Santa Monica.
Yeah,
So
it could be them saying, hey, my wife's home, but I know for a fact that was a big issue, is how many drop 911 calls or calls for help or calls for other people. Oh, my mom's trapped,
Drop call means that they automatically have to go.
not always, but,
Yeah.
yeah, and, you're doing, situational triage at that point, right? There's 2,000 calls that come in that period. You have to look at these calls and go, where's the most important one to go to at that point, right? So Drew at that time is literally taking all these calls and going, okay, this one sounds legit, and this one sounds like the most scary, let's get resources this one.
It's sort of interesting that Drew actually told 911, give me all the calls. Because there were so many bad calls. So
So they're literally routing the calls directly to Drew's phone in the car, and he was doing kind of Rain Man inside of his car, riding the windows.
because he knew where all his resources were, and 911 doesn't necessarily, so they're just looking for the first available to send in. And he's trying to do the best response to it. At the same time, if all these engines, everything is engaged, what 911 is doing, they send in an ambulance from San Bernardino, because that might be the closest. So it's a problem. Actually, during the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake, there was such a demand on that to get EMS service could take 45 minutes.
So if Drew had one of, like a tree kind of thing, if Drew had a number for Big Rock to call that person or 2 people, and then those people had a line to call.
That's exactly how it would operate, is that it would be, you guys would have a community lead, and then that would be the one single point of contact. And then up to 7 people would answer to that person, right?
Right.
And then those 7 people, which would be like a sub lead, would then have, like a block leader, block captain, would then have people that answer to them, right? So, and it wouldn't be, it could be a phone call, it could be radio, Drew maybe, or whoever's running incident command saying, hey, community brigade at Big Rock, I have X, Y, and Z at this address, can you help me out?
Because they will be able to talk to us directly.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the most unique things about this. This is not independent brigades acting all on their own and playing cowboy. This is an integrated approach where we really are operating with county fire and
Yeah.
cooperation with the sheriff as well. It's really different.
And another thing we haven't really talked about too is how important the brigade will be at evacuation support, because during a fire there's evacuations, and in that evacuation support, it may just be knocking on doors. Hey, have you heard there's a fire? I mean, during Woolsey on Saturday morning, we ran into an elderly guy that had a cane, and I said, hey, do you want a mask? He was just outside on the street. And he said, yeah, did they put the fire out yet? I was like, no, not quite. And he's like, did it ever cross the 101? And I was like, it was right, it's right there, like on your street. And he's like, really? You made it this far, huh? And I was like, it's crazy that completely unaware, So, as a trusted resource, the community better than anybody, better than even the guys on 70s, right? And so the pains and the weaknesses of the community, we also know the strengths of the community in terms of people and the resources that are here. So, we're kind of that trusted resource of information that can be relayed to responding resources.
You'll be last out. It's really, what we want you to do is help in the evacuation, get everybody else out. And then you get, depending on the situation, if it's so catastrophic, you shouldn't be here either. Fire department's going to say, okay, go to the safe refugee, it doesn't. Otherwise, they may say, depending on the event, go to the TRO, the temporary refugee, which could be right in the neighborhood. So it depends on the nature of the fire and the event itself, which there's a million variables. And it can even change during the event.
Yeah.
Because winds change, wind shift.
As part of this program, is there a particular focus on evacuation where we have one way in, one way out? And evacuation procedures that should be followed in a situation like this? Is this discussed?
It's in the one way in, one way out areas, or even with limited. I'll take Topanga. Because you just got 2 minutes, right? It's pretty much it. Keegan wrote an article not that long ago that was published. What timings were?
Yeah, I mean, Topanga is a really unique situation. So basically, ever since the '93 fire in Topanga, the county, FEMA, sheriffs, everybody has studied this thing over and over and over, modeling what happens in the worst case scenario when their fire starts up towards Santa Maria Road area, kind of northeastern part of Topanga on a bad day, right? So depending on the day, time of day, there's anywhere from 12 to 16,000 people within the fire perimeter, potential fire perimeter from the top of Topanga that need to be evacuated, right? That would be impacted by fire. So 12 to 16,000 people on a strong windy day. To get those 12 to 16,000 people to evacuate on a sunny day with great communication that they've modeled several times, they've actually tried doing evacuation before, minimum 5 to 6 hours, minimum. That's with sunny communication, no accidents, etc. Minimum 5 to 6 hours. When the fire starts at the top of Topanga on a strong windy day, it'll burn to the ocean in 3 hours. So that leaves minimum 6,000 people in the canyon, in the fire perimeter.
You can't get out.
That can't get out, minimum. And that's without, during Woolsey, I was living in Topanga. My family was going to evacuate. There was a car that flipped over in the middle of the road on Topanga and the S-turns blocking the road. So it's a really bad situation. Thankfully here you guys have not that many people. It is a one way in, one way out, but
The objective would be to evacuate the community when we know the fire's coming. It's the other side of the 101 freeway. Headed this way, you have enough time. Fire issues the order, sheriff helps implement the order. But Drew would be the one, or someone like Drew saying, okay, I want this area clear. They are looking at life safety. That is their #1 priority. That's our #1 priority as well. We don't want someone dying for the house. That's the right thing. So they make them safe. Get out of Big Rock. in that case, we want to try to get as many people out as possible. But if the brigade itself or some core members, if the decision is made by fire to have that group stay in the TRA, then that certain group would stay, everybody else gets out. Question?
Is there any plans to have like maybe an annual simulation where you actually do a real kind of go through it, not a full size basis, but a small basis, and then maybe have some people, like when you're doing an aircraft trainer, throwing some problems. Like, for example, you have your tree where you do communication and then it goes to 7 people and, okay,
Right.
what if the first guy doesn't get it? Then all of those are put out of action. So how do you handle that? And so is there
Like hypotheticals, in
Yeah,
terms
just
of like
something.
a fire, not just evacuation, but you're saying the whole.
Yeah, I mean, so if you did a simulation or a go through.
Yeah.
And then is there somebody or some people who do analysis of things that can go wrong?
Absolutely, I mean,
Because
that's
what always happens is something.
absolutely, and nothing ever runs smoothly, right? So I think that's the plan with the local fire stations is to go through hypotheticals, not just about learning how to run a hose. Okay, everything's going good. All of a sudden, one of your guys' brigade members isn't answering the radio. And last you heard, they were checking on a house or something. Now, all of a sudden, basically, your whole situation has to be about accountability for that one individual. What happened to that individual? Who's going to go check on that individual? Are you going to get a hold of that person? But are all the people going to work on finding that person, et cetera? So, and that happens all the time in volunteer stuff, like it happened in Mountain West, where they had somebody that left that didn't tell anybody. And so they all thought that he got injured or worse. And so they had to stop focusing on what they were doing in terms of protecting structures and to go track this guy down. And there's no cell service. The guy got left. So, yeah.
But we will be doing what are called tabletop exercise.
Yeah, right.
And also simulation exercise. So the difference is the tabletop is you don't necessarily physically deploy, you simulate them. And then the actual full simulation, you actually deploy a certain amount of resources. It takes a lot more to do a simulation because now you're committing the cost of certain assets to go out there. But the brigades themselves, and we want
A lot of that's just practicing with the radio.
it makes sense. But doing tabletops, we have a lot of experience.
You know, press the screen. It helps.
I want to say, excuse me for standing up, floor is really hard.
That's right.
When I was in CERT, I found, especially repeatedly with the tabletop exercises, they were really helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that they, while you're not actually on the street doing it, it's getting that mode in your mind of the details of what you have to do. And the sequence with your team members of how that works. And I really think that's incredibly helpful. And I would even extend that to let's call it the neighborhood network thing of, okay, so now we need to know well before the fire and we need to simulate this between our neighbors, like where's your key? What dogs do you have?
Right.
I don't personally have any animals right now, but my
Are there any
neighbors.
horses at Big Rock?
No.
No.
But you forgot that when you talked about evacuation.
Oh, we talk about it all the time. We talk about it.
Your horses up on Santa Maria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I think we should do local simulations where we really, even if it's neighbors just getting together for a coffee patch, because, and talking about, here's my house, here's my, I don't know what people do with their keys, but, whatever it's gonna be worked out.
Yeah.
That has to be done ahead of time because nobody's gonna put that together.
Yeah.
When they're ready.
And that's really the goal with the brigades is to identify community leaders that have the time, dedication, offer them the training, and they can help be the leaders of the community to lead those types of things. So post-incident, making sure unified messaging of incident updates, so making sure that when you talk to the community, that is accurate information coming directly from the fire department. Helping with repopulations, again, communicating to locals about why they're still evacuated or when they can come in. Other logistical support and basically standing unified in post-disaster community communication with all the stakeholders, fire department, et cetera.
You may be asked to escort people back up for, like, in certain cases, okay, you got 30 minutes or X amount of time to go look at your house, and you may be with that individual to escort them. You may also be asked potentially, if there are fire departments that come in from out of the area that don't know the streets and so forth, possibility that you're asked to go with them to not advance.
So, I have to head out unfortunately.
No worries.
We're all touch base with you on, I'm all in.
Good, man. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Tom, 100%.
Good, man. Thanks for coming over, I appreciate it. This is Nolan, by the way. Yeah, he's a newer community member.
Yeah, I just moved in here on Seaboard.
Where's the Seaport?
0419 right there, the Mars, you know, Joe?
Yeah.
They go up Caroline.
Oh, I'm on the private road, welcome.
Pretty close to yours overseas.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, that's gonna be all you guys, yeah, so I can't stay till the end, but.
No worries. Yeah, we're finishing up right now. See you, man. Nice to see you.
He's exactly the prototype we're looking for.
So, I mean, the real kind of, big picture here is we want to be operational by this fall, by prior season. That will be initial interest, basically sign up on the website. After you sign up on the website, you'll get within the next week or two, you'll get a initial interest form, which basically says, hey, why are you interested? What's your name, email, etc. Then after that selection, there's a selection committee. They select X amount of people, and then the next is in-person interviews at the fire stations. Then after that would be a background check, live scan background check, similar to arson watch, if anybody's done that. And then after that, then you'll get to do all your training and get all your certifications. And then after that would be IDs being issued and being operationally ready.
Sorry, I know
Yeah.
I asked 1,000 questions.
No worries, please shoot.
So if you're just interested in the communication with us physically, it's not gonna work for some of us.
Mhm.
Do you have to go through that physical training as well? If you're just doing communication?
No, you have to understand how operations works. You'd have to do the classes, but you don't necessarily have to partake in the physical activity, but you need to understand how everything works. Because if you're running communications and somebody says, hey, I need 200 feet of inch and a half or something, you're gonna, what's 200 feet of inch and a half, right? So you have to understand how everything works.
Age limit on the physical
No,
side of it?
no, there isn't. We're still trying to figure out exactly if we're actually gonna have a specific bar that people have to reach in terms of like a physical test.
Yeah, originally it was like carry so much weight, do this in certain.
There's a few different, there's a few different national standards. One of them is just like a 2-mile hike under 25 minutes or something. Another one is a bit higher one is a 2-mile hike with a 25-pound pack on your back under X amount of minutes, and another one's 45 pounds under. So it just depends.
We're not trying to make it a wild type.
Correct, yeah. It's just, you know, this doesn't really have a template to exist. We're kind of creating it right now. Yeah, I think that's kind of, you know, the most important thing is, I think one of the important things is that brigades, especially post-Woolsey, have kind of started to form with Point Doom, Big Rocks, and other people, you guys that have this community engagement enthusiasm. Goal with this is that this program will create sustainability. And because it's a template is, you know, if my crew with Tyler, if Tyler and I disappeared tomorrow, we moved out of town, that infrastructure amongst our crew really fall apart. So having a formal template here will really help create long-term sustainability, which I think is really, really important. And it'll help create, you know, generational cultural change.
I have another question.
Yeah, shoot.
Maybe I misunderstood, when you were, going through these things a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like you said there were 2 levels of training, and then you started talking about basic, and I've been waiting for you to talk about the next level up. That's not the basic, the advanced or whatever. The basic sounds pretty substantial to begin with.
Yeah.
Is there some other level that, there is, or when you were saying there's 2 levels where you're saying basic, where there's people that are out and about, and then people that do communication?
Right, so I think that's almost 2 different questions. So there's field people, the people that would be more physically active, and there are people like organizational support. They may be communications, it may just be helping throw community events, having a party for you guys to do, sort of sending emails. I mean, just all the Yeah, there's a lot of just organization stuff
Administrative
that needs to
tasks.
happen, yeah, amongst your community.
We do want everyone to understand this part of the brigade, understand fire behavior in general, because there's the incident command system piece. And some of the stuff like you heard through CERT, but it's really a different level if you go through some training. What does fire do? And you learn a different level of respect and understanding when you go through those classes as to what happens truly in fire. So it'd be great to have everybody trained on that. Where there's really differences on an annual basis, when it comes to the physical stuff, there will be a number of physical training kind of events for those folks who are field people, and the support people don't need. So we'll make a distinction between the support side and guys who are actually doing exercises with the fire department that are more physical. And that'll be the main difference. Also, the communication protocols, everyone needs to know them, but the field guys are going to be probably much more proactive in practicing what those are, and that's your involvement in the communication side.
Also, they're in a community, the community lead and maybe like your block captains. The hope is that they would do more above and beyond with this kind of base level education that is taking 290 other more advanced courses just to have that situational awareness.
So we want you can go to a couple of different websites, but the communitybrigade.org, it's all just one word, community brigade, www.communitybrigade.org. Get it through .com as well, but .org. And that's going to take you to basically a form that you can fill in.
And I'll send that to Colin. You can re-email to all you guys. It just says your name, email, what community you're supporting. If you go do sign up, there's a little thing that says keep me updated. Make sure you click that button. It just allows me to communicate easily through email messaging.
Just curious, that
Yeah.
link was sent out to the community.
Okay, great.
Do you know about the response?
I can actually look at my phone in a second and see how many people have actually signed up for Big Rock.
I think.
Yeah, you probably,
Yeah, I know some
some of them have.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a bunch. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
dozen or so from Big Rock that I've already seen signed up.
Oh, that's good.
But as a whole, we've already got about 150 for the area. So not just Big Rock, but the whole area. So,
They came back with an email.
yeah, an automatic email.
They
Yeah.
would, a couple of weeks before we would hear from
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
And
That's
they
me
needed
and
to
Brent, so,
explore what,
yeah.
how
The
we
next
could-
thing you'll see after you sign up is you'll get in the next week or so, basically, you're gonna get a questionnaire. It's gonna be sent to you. It's gonna be about 10 to 15 questions. That's gonna ask you your name, why are you interested, what value would you bring to the brigades, just basic questions about you for us and the selection committee to basically figure out who is qualified to do this and what roles they would be. Any other questions?
How many people from a neighborhood like Big Rock would be your goal to get to join?
Good question. I think nothing under 10, and somewhere between 10 and 30.
Yeah, I would say we can't get away with less than 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need kind of a minimum around 10, and then anything above 30 starts to become a lot for one person to manage, right? Because the incident command is really about having ideally about 5 people that answer to you, and then a few people that answer to those 5 people.
Of that, whatever, 7 to 30, how many field and how many non?
Well, 7 to 30 would really be the kind of field stuff, and then maybe an additional 5 for non-field stuff. I think would be kind of ideal. Just for
Then is 30%?
correct, yeah, and then an additional 5 for operational support, communications, whatever that is. So,
I get it.
yeah, shoot.
With respect to these 7 groups,
Mhm.
what's the plan in terms of having, let's say there's a fire here.
The
Point
groups
group
support
kind
each
of-
other. Yeah, so that's a
Yeah.
huge value
Yeah.
for this is that because we're all trained together, we'll know each other. When Big Rock is threatened, typically Point Dune's not threatened, right? So for me, Tyler and I, we would come here. I mean, just like that fire that happened, not this winter, not the Owen one, but the one that started at a house up off of South Peak area. You guys remember that one? It was in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
So for example, that when we ran through that situational, we kind of did a tabletop for that one was, okay, what would we have done for point two? We would have came over here, contacted you guys, whoever's the lead here, and said, hey, we've got, 10 guys from point two, how can we help?
Yeah, which is cool. It's really
And
cool.
whether it's helping with evacuation, it's helping with equipment, for us at Point Doom, we've got probably 8 or 10 pickup trucks. We've got several skid units that go in the back of the pickup trucks that have water, hose and stuff like that. So we can come support you guys, knowing that all of our communications work together.
Yeah, so like in the selection process, maybe I'll disqualify myself right now. My house is burned down twice here. I'm not letting it burn down again.
Yeah, I
Okay?
mean,
I'll die first.
Yeah.
So if it comes to going to other communities and helping, I'm all in to help
Right.
anytime, okay? If something happens here, I wanna be around my neighbors
Yeah.
and help my neighbors around there. But if I'm disqualified because I gotta go
No,
up
so-
there,
so
and the
here's-
house is burning,
no,
I'm not
great
gonna
question.
do it, and I bet you, if we're all truthful,
most people wouldn't. So here, that's a great question. You're never gonna be ordered out of your community. The idea is not for you to be.
Unless it's a mass evacuation.
And that's the thing, everybody's in dying community.
so I'm still, if there's a mass evacuation, I can take it. Can't
No,
be
it's not.
fired to leave, I'm not leaving.
No, what I'm saying
Never
is,
happened.
what I'm saying is you're not gonna be listed as a resource that you get called, hey, we need you to go over to Las Flores to do X, Y, and Z. That's not how the program works. You're a volunteer in your community. The only value you have ultimately when a fire is coming to your community is for your community, right? So it's not that you become a resource that's gets put on a list that then gets ordered somewhere and you go, sir, yes, sir, let me go.
So your brigade, whoever's your brigade leader per se, let's say the fire is even further away, Ventura County, by Neptune's Net, that area, it's really not gonna affect you. But it's over there, they could use an additional, David Hertz who runs that, use an additional 4 or 5 people. Basically, Keegan, who's really managing all of this, would come back to your brigade head and say, hey, how many people do you have that might be available potentially to go down there? You can't order them, you guys have to agree that you want to do it. And you may say, hey, look, I'm available, I'll go help the county, I'll go do that. And that's probably how we operate. By the way, one of the things that's really important with the fire union, we had to agree completely, and want to do this anyway, that we're not owned by LA County Fire in a way that they could come to us and say, hey, there's a fire in Santa Barbara, you guys gotta pack up and go to Santa Barbara, you gotta go up to some other place that's, way far away. That's an absolute, will not happen.
What you could do is if there's a fire like Bobcat Fire a couple of years ago or another fire, you could say, hey, I'm free today, I want to go learn more about fire stuff. You can actually go to Incident Command, hang out as a volunteer because you're in the system just to learn, right?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, and I've already done that a few times, and it's a great
It's up.
experience of seeing really what operating is.
You did a prescribed burn.
Yeah, I got to do all sorts of sweet stuff already. Like I got to go to prescribed fire and take these little grenades and throw them in the brush and have them explode and stuff like. We've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff. Go up to 69 Bravo to see the demonstrations with the doctors, and there's a lot of really cool cultural incentives to join the program.
Well, now it could set the backfire.
There we go.
No, so, we work closely with air ops as well.
I wanted to ask, because I'm not part of Arson Watch, and one of the reasons is that I live at the top of Big Rock, or one of the tops. And so I feel like for me, it's not just about my house, but just for the community, because I can see right at the top of, the chaparral and the ridge lines there. Is there a way for somebody who's not officially part of the Arson Watch to also be in connection with them? Because I'm there to look out for.
You're talking about Arson Watch?
Yeah.
Of community. It's not part of, I wasn't sure if you were saying part of Arson Watch or part of community.
Arson Watch in the sense that I just saw the traffic right there.
Oh, yeah.
It reminded me.
Yeah, there's
That I-
several of us.
So Arson Watch is a totally separate program that's run by the sheriff's department.
But
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But it's still part of the whole thing of watching out for your community and seeing what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm not willing to go somewhere else,
Mhm.
but if I had a way to input, should ever happen, because of where I live, it's kind of like one of those little outposts.
Yeah.
The best thing for you to do is call 911.
Yeah.
Then you eliminate the extra person and the extra
Oh, okay.
If you can't get through to 911, I can give you the names of the Arson Watch members in Big Rock,
Oh, okay.
and you can contact any one of us who might be able to.
Oh, great, okay.
Yeah, that's the best
Yeah.
way for sure.
But
And an interesting one too, that has only come about in the last few years is that the fire department now knows about a fire typically like within a minute of when it starts, due to satellites or cameras or both, triangulation with satellites, cameras. So, when there's a start, they pick it up really fast, really fast.
Yeah, Chief Smith, something to be aware of, Orange County, Ventura County, and LA County, Chief Smith for here, Chief Hennessy down in Orange County, up in Ventura County, developed a rapid response force,
Quick reaction.
a quick reaction force, which is multiple Chinook, twin blade, heavy helicopters, that fly at night, 24 hours a day, have capability, with night vision, but they're also laser guided and computer controlled for dropping the water. Each of these Chinooks carries 3,000 gallons of water, so it's more than any of the Firehawks or city fire helicopters that carry 100 gallons. And they are incredibly proficient. And during some of the fires that we had here last year, they actually came in and immediately with key and putting them out. And they'll pull water at 16 Bravo, they can pull from the ocean, they can pull from a lot of things. And they're absolutely amazing. What's interesting is I talked about mitigation at the very beginning of our talk and the value of investing in pre-disaster mitigation. So that is, it's putting out the fire, but it's also a mitigation effort. So because it's mitigation, who do you think pays for this? How?
Taxpayers?
Southern California is. SCE pays over $44 million a year to fund those helicopters, which is wonderful. Why do they do it? Well, it's a lot easier to pay $44 million than $2 or $3 billion in damages from a fire. So they get it, and they're looking at that. They're also investing heavily in changing, obviously, wood poles to composite poles. You'll see a lot of the telepoles. You'll see this black wrapping on that. What that's designed to do is to prevent the poles from burning, just so you know what that is. They're changing to cover connectors and coverage lines. They're actually doing a lot. They still have a lot to do, but at least they're trying to mitigate some of the risk.
They just turn my trees.
Yeah. So it's good to know that they're,
Whether you wanted them to or not.
but they're saying they're investing. Now, we would just tell you as a community, as we do this, it's something for you guys to do too. For us to do all this, we're totally dependent on grant money and donations to make this happen. We go after CAL FIRE funds. That's what paid for us to do these hundreds of homes that we're assessing and so forth. Malibu Foundation paid for all the radio equipment. But the PPE, for example, it runs $2,700 per person. This stuff it's expensive because it has to meet all these high standards. We don't buy used fire. We won't give you a used fire shelter.
We already have it. And
If it meets those standards,
Potentially, the goal is for everybody to be in a uniform colors, so that when, outside roosters come in, it doesn't look like a ragtag brigade, it's like, oh, these guys all line up and fit.
So we encourage you to look at, can you guys raise money even within your own community that can be used to help the operational side of making this all work. That would be a great benefit, or if corporate connections or other connections. The idea of this particular program from the state level and beyond is the state of California wants to replicate this throughout the state. It's a reason it's a certified pilot for a couple of years. Chief Maroney, the largest fire department in the United States, is LA County Fire. And that's one of the reasons it also took a while to get all of it approved, as you pointed out. So they want this to be successful. They are working with us hand in glove to make this thing a success. And also, I will tell you, it's a pilot. And the reason we designated it as a pilot is it gives us the ability to modify and change things as we go. So we're not perfect. We don't have all the answers. Fire department doesn't have all the answers. In this room, there are a lot of smart, educated, and experienced individuals. If you have ideas and concepts or see things that are going on that you think, hey, it could be done a little bit better, or I have something that can help, or you might want to change this, I want to hear about it. Because we potentially can make those modifications to the program and change it so that as we go forward, it gets better. We're learning on the communication. What's the best way to do the communications? How much do we want information put out there or not? How do we avoid some of the problems that occurred in the past? That all goes into a program like this. So it's your program, it's not mine. It belongs to the community.
The work in progress.
It is, it's a work in progress, and that's what's so nice about it. But
And to be honest, because the fire burned most of all Malibu, we're actually the community that benefits the most from it.
For sure, yeah,
So
you
it's important
guys.
to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's kind of scary. The fuel load, it's huge, 60-year plus.
Well, when
Yeah.
Topanga is scary, it's scary for us. I mean, the old
Because the
Topanga fire,
wind blows
we
this
lost
way.
25% of our buildings.
Right.
You're talking about 93?
Yeah.
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 Because it came from everywhere.
It's kind of
From
the same
Topanga
thing.
and then-
Including the home on this site that you're sitting in.
Oh, really? It's been burning?
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, does the fire department or police department have the power to remove you from your property?
The only one that could would be the police. In evacuations, when they ask for evacuation, if you decide to stay anyway, they can't necessarily force you. There may be cases where law enforcement could do certain things if what you're doing is going to be a harm to others, or you're doing something to block it. If you went out there and parked your cars on the road to block everybody from getting out or doing something like that, yeah, they're probably going to get your cars and move you out of there. So it depends what your actions are, but they can't really do much. But you have to also decide what's your life worth. It isn't worth dying for that. I've been burned out too. So. It's
You live in
tragic.
Malibu?
Yeah, I live on Las Vegas. Near the fire camp, which, I thought it was a fire camp, but it's a brush camp. They don't fight home fires. They're brush camp.
Well, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all
Yeah.
that you guys do to protect us, to help us, and all your time and energy. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long road, the last 4 years, so I would have given up probably a few times along the way, but Brent's persistence and leadership here really got us a little.
Yeah, it's impressive.
You're lucky to have it.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, because I know we've got a lot of conversations on the communication side and what you're doing, satellite stuff.
Very good at communication.
Yeah, I got the satellite dish in now.
It's great.
Yeah.
We look at things like even backup communications, and Starlink has become more
Huge, yeah.
something that's potential future. Yeah, we look at it and saying, okay, if I can't get you via radio, if I can get you on a voice over IP via Starlink,
Did Southern California Edison ever look at putting the power lines underground, or they
Yeah.
still be consistent?
It's
keeping them
expensive,
above?
Very reluctant.
A big part of the big part of that issue is that it's not just power lines, it's all the comms, all the fiber optic and everything that's on there. So if they do that, then they have to bury all the comms. There's a really complicated process. They have to dig up all that land. A lot of that land is private lands, there's easements. It's really expensive, really time consuming. Obviously, Carbon Beach did that a number of years ago. They underground the line, that's a little bit easier. It's a straight line, and they got all the homeowners to agree.
Yeah, get a couple billionaires to do it there.
Yeah, there's actually only like 10 people that own all the houses.
Yes.
I just like to make a comment on that, because a few months ago, they were doing surveys in our area. I don't know if you folks do that, but Edison, right, is doing surveys, and there's a plan. They don't define the exact time, but maybe within a couple of years, and, they want to make commitments they were looking at all the poles between, like, maybe a little bit out, but Big Rock at least to, maybe it was carbon. And so I do think undergrounding the wires is in the works. It's just the time, and does that happen before or after?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a time, I the other thing too is that for fires that are a major threat to your community, aren't ones that start here or start with PCH. I mean,
Yeah.
are a little bit of a threat, but it's really the bigger fires that are started several miles away that
Yeah.
are threatening thousands of homes.
Yeah.
There's not enough resources to respond. If there's a fire that started right here, within 5 minutes probably, there's typically 5 to 10 minutes, there's a helicopter that's already dropping. That's a response time that's not duplicated anywhere in the world, so.
Yeah, but if the fire does get here, the wires that could be burning or down or whatever.
That's where they do all the hardening with the wrapping now, especially post-Woolsey, they're really working on that, insulating the lines, wrapping the bases, keeping the fuel around the base of the. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I know they spend a lot of their time.
Once you hang out, don't move the wires anywhere on the road.
Advocate with SC, I mean, if you see poles that are tilting, that aren't wrapped, have too much fuel, just call them, they'll come out.
Yeah, I actually on Rockport, there was a pole that was tilting. I called them about it and I said, hey, why don't you, bury all the poles on the street, which I've been wanting to do a long time, and they just came and replaced it. And inland, it's everything buried.
Right.
From the beginning.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I got poles that have an eyesore on the street.
A lot of people here have poles that are right under island.
I mean, the main power that comes up, it kind of doesn't go along the road, or part of it does, but it cuts through the canyon area there.
Right.
So it's kind of in a fire area if something falls down and
For sure.
start a fire real quick, but it's not gonna block the road, but we do have some places where the road could be blocked. So.
Right.
We met with SC, talking to them, a long conversation about saying, can you prioritize all the escape routes from the neighborhoods and the ingress routes for the fire trucks, so that we look at those locations throughout the Santa Monica Mountains area and prioritize those roads first. They're the ones that are the main routes, because if you lose one of those routes, like, you can't get fire trucks in, you can't get the people out. So, and the old wooden poles, we got a lot of creosote and so forth, but once they catch, it's like railroad ties. Railroad ties are not something really nice, maybe hold a part of the hill, but when they get on fire, you're not gonna be able to put them.
They're there, noxious, and the smell just absolutely.
Not an ideal way to present it, but this is the fire history map from the Santa Monica Mountains for the last 70 years. And you can see that there's not basically a single square foot that hasn't burned at least once, some of them several times over. So this is, the county line area, and this is the Palisades, Brentwood. So you have to be somewhere around.
But if they could underground, undergrounding is great. I know where I am, in that community, when they built the homes. But it's very expensive.
Well, I have a point on that, and that is two, actually. One of the things that the Edison survey team said, or maybe it was somebody else said that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe John, I forget. But anyway, one of the things that they would like to see, which aren't as big a risk, but nonetheless are still a risk, are the service wires from the poles to the houses. And they're not going to underground those. But I think those are critical for us to underground. And also, if they're looking at a community, what ones are we going to do? If we have our service wires undergrounded, I'm not saying that's going to make a whit's worth of difference, but maybe it will, to say, look, we're trying here. And so I would suggest that people should really try to do that. And if we need some kind of funding for some people, because it might be a little bit expensive, even when you're doing it, right, to have those wires underground. Maybe we should have some kind of loan program or grant program. Maybe we could get a grant and looking at all these Cal Fire funds and whatever. And I don't know what the particulars of the grants are, but to underground the service wire, because Edison is not going to pay for it. So that's a thought.
Yeah, you're talking about, really, you said really around mitigation, you're identifying a risk, that's a clear risk, and you come up with a plan to say, well, how do I mitigate that risk? Insurance is like some form of mitigation. Insurance is funny, because with risk, there's only a few things you can do with risk. You can own it, which means it's all on your shoulders to do it. You can ignore it, which is not exactly the best plan. You can sometimes transfer. Transfer of risk means like I buy insurance. So I'm going for, well, I know of the risk of what would happen to my property or car and this, and I'm instead of paying somebody else to take that risk. But that's harder and harder to do. So more and more in society, we're seeing that the risk is coming right back on our own shoulders. And that says then, how do we mitigate it as a community, individual, to address the highest risks? What you're saying is correct, right? It's pretty important. I mean, as we do these inspections, it's changed too as to how the insurance companies. I mean, there's a lot of talk now about the 0 to 5 foot zone from a house, and what IBHS and what some of the insurance companies are looking at. They don't want anything to burn, any vegetation can burn from 0 to 5 feet. And for a lot of folks, that's like wind. I think these beautiful plants or other stuff I've had for the whole time here, and affects the aesthetics of the house. But the insurance companies are saying, I don't care. So we're seeing some big changes. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. We took a lot of your time, but we appreciate it. We'll be back in touch with you, just like Keegan said, you sign up.
Yeah, you sign up, you'll get a questionnaire in the next week or so, and please fill that out, spend the time to answer it. And then from there, essentially, we'll listen to interviews.
And the interviews are joint interviews. Well, it'll be somebody from the fire station, a captain or something like that, and one of us doing the interviews with you. There'll be hot lights, there'll be photos.
Well, the email comes from Community Brigade.
Correct.
I have actually one more question. This is something that I've given some thought to. And that is that the actual cost of undergrounding, if you were to do it privately, is, I think, probably 10% of what, just based on what they told me about my property, of what, and that may not be true. That's just one anecdote, right, of the cost of my property. And so I have advocated for a while, not really public very much, for maybe a community to approach a city, to approach Edison and say, look, give up this, you have to do it all. I mean, it's a damn trench with some gravel and pavement, and that's all it is. Do everything to their inspection. They provide the inspection for free. You dig the trench, put in the gravel, put in the conduit, city provides inspection for free, and they pull the wires for free. And so what the homeowner or the community is, has to pay for would be digging the trench and putting in gravel and conduit. I think we could move forward much faster if there was permission by Edison to do that. And they do that in certain circumstances, so it's not like it never happens.
Well, the problem is that I looked at having the poles removed in front of my house, and it's very expensive. This was 5 years ago, and it's $70,000 to $100,000 for one pole.
Yeah.
But the issue is that you brought up, it's just not Southern California Edison. It's the cable company. It's the other companies that, not all those wires are Southern California Edison. So there was
I think the other big issue too now is because the move to 5G for cell, it requires a lot of sites. A lot of those sites are now on the poles. They're basically micro cells, right? And those need to be above ground. That can't be below ground, right? Propagation. So if they put all the stuff underground, they have to then re-erect new poles just for 5G.
Yeah, I don't think that's an impediment to our finding a solution.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't know that much about it. I would talk to SE or,
Yeah,
it's good.
I think people should speak up and say, this cost that you're charging us is $100,000, like, no, 70 or something, was the last estimate on my house. Okay, no sidewalks, no competing utilities, nothing.
They jack it up if they don't want to do it.
Yeah, you got it.
It solves the point.
3 foot trench, gravel and conduit. It just doesn't between two poles. So.
Well, I think it's good. I mean, you guys should try a different meeting, but you might want to.
Yeah. No, I'm taking this opportunity to put it forth.
We got some.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, and thanks for hosting us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, one last something. Doing the things is just for wildfire, it's for any disaster, so as we approach the community, for, could you please participate, these things can work. No land of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're focused on all
Go
hazards.
for it.
Yeah,
Because
because.
all these
oh,
things that
you know,
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been looking at.
I can give these.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. This is sweet. So these are the ones that are in the boxes?